Good afternoon. It's Thursday, March 10th. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. France is continuing to push forward its initiative to jumpstart Israeli-Palestinian peace talks at a summit later this year. A special French envoy is set to arrive in the country on Sunday for 2 days of meetings with officials in Jerusalem and Ramallah. Seeking support from Arab states, France's foreign minister, Jean-Marc Ayrault, traveled to Cairo for talks with his Egyptian counterpart. He toned down his country's earlier assertions that Paris will automatically recognize a Palestinian state if its initiative fails. Speaking at a press conference, Ayrault says his country's proposal is the only possible solution to bring a halt to the current round of violence. Egypt's foreign minister, Sameh Shoukry, said his country supports the French initiative that will allow both the Palestinians and Israel to live peacefully. In January, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu harshly criticized the French ultimatum to recognize a Palestinian state no matter what, saying such steps were counterproductive and would be an incentive for the Palestinians not to come to the negotiation table. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden left Israel this morning, wrapping up his 2-day visit in the country, and headed for Jordan to meet with King Abdullah. Last night in Ramallah, Biden met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who offered his condolences to the U.S. Vice President over the killing of American student Taylor Force by a Palestinian in Tuesday's terror attack in Jaffa. The Palestinian leader, however, failed to condemn the recent series of attacks in Israel. Abbas told Biden Israel has killed 200 Palestinians in the current wave of unrest that began in October. The Palestinian leader reiterated his commitment to a two-state solution and accused Israel of continuing to occupy the West Bank and build settlements. There was no joint statement issued by the two leaders concerning their meeting. However, the Palestinian news agency Wafa said Biden assured Abbas that the American administration continues to defend the principle of a two-state solution and that its policy concerning Israel's settlements is unchanged. In Washington, the U.S. State Department said Vice President Joe Biden took Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to task for failing to condemn the recent wave of terror attacks in Israel, and that he also raised the issue of ongoing incitement in the Palestinian media against the Jewish state.
We've consistently called on the Palestinians to condemn the violence, and this incident is no different. There just can't be any justification for this kind of hateful violence. And I would say that we have raised our concerns about this particular incident with the Palestinians, in addition to the Vice President doing it.
Okay, can you?
Terror and threats to Israel's security were also among the topics discussed by U.S. Vice President Biden and President Reuven Rivlin during their meeting in Jerusalem yesterday. The two also discussed the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Biden warned that Israel will not be able to curb the upsurge in the Palestinian terror and violence with military force.
You arrived yesterday and were in Jaffa, just a short distance from the brutal terror attack in which a U.S. citizen was murdered. I stand here with you in grief and in solidarity. Our prayers go to the victim's family and to all the injured in the wave of terror which struck last night and this morning.
Partnerships with Israel are in many fronts, but central to that is that security partnership which we have. So I hope to discuss with you, Mr. President, ideas that will help reduce extremism and achieve greater economic opportunity for both Israelis and Palestinians alike. Issues about which I know you are passionate.
In related news, Israel and the U.S. have not yet signed the 10-year security aid deal they were seeking to finalize. During their meetings yesterday, Biden told Netanyahu that the defense aid package to Israel will be less than it was when Jerusalem was hoping to get more. At the same time, he assured him that the amount would reflect the country's security needs and urged the Prime Minister to accept the offer before President Barack Obama's tenure ends in November. He stressed that the agreement could always be amended at a later date. The two countries are negotiating a memorandum of understanding that would extend U.S. military aid to Israel for an additional 10 years. The current aid package, which is set to expire in 2018, stands at $3 billion annually. And Netanyahu reportedly asked to increase the amount to $5 billion a year, most of what has to be spent in the United States. Following the recent spat of terror attacks, authorities have launched a major crackdown on illegal Palestinians who are in the country without a work permit. Over the past 2 days alone, police have arrested more than 250 such labor migrants. Over a dozen drivers who transported them into Israel have also been detained, along with 15 supervisors who hired them. The police criticized the court system and urged judges to impose heavier fines on illegal laborers. Security forces overnight mapped out the West Bank homes of the 4 terrorists involved in Tuesday's terror attack in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Petah Tikva. The homes are slated for demolition. The Army, together with border police and engineering units, operated in Al Zawiya, southeast of Kalkilia, at the home of Abed Rada, who carried out the attack in Petah Tikva. In Hijia, northeast of Kalkilia, troops mapped out the home of Bashar Masalha, who perpetrated the attack in Jaffa, killing an American tourist. In the village of Akeb, troops mapped out the homes of 2 terrorists responsible for the shooting attack in East Jerusalem. The raids overnight in the West Bank. In the raids, the army arrested 31 Palestinians wanted for questioning, including 6 members of the Masalha family. Hamas officials in Gaza said that they have lost contact with 4 operatives that were located in a tunnel in southern Gaza after it was apparently flooded by Egypt. Officials in Gaza this morning said 3 Hamas operatives succeeded in extricating themselves from the tunnel, but the fate of 4 other members remains unclear. Since September last year, the Egyptian army has intensified its efforts to stamp out terrorist activity and smuggling in the tunnel dug by Hamas, and periodically pumps seawater into the cross-border tunnels that link the Gaza Strip to the Sinai Peninsula. In recent months, a number of Hamas tunnels caved in, killing a number of terrorist organizations' operatives. Senior officials in Jerusalem have harshly condemned Iran's missile tests this week, calling them a grave violation of the UN Security Council resolution which endorsed the nuclear deal signed between Tehran and world powers. A statement issued by the Foreign Ministry said that the development of missiles, which Iran specifically stated were capable of reaching Israel, prove the Islamic Republic continues to disregard the demands of the international community and develop its offensive capabilities. The missiles had clear slogans written on them in Hebrew, reading, "Israel must be wiped off the face of the earth." Speaking in Jerusalem yesterday, U.S. Vice President Biden assured Israel that if Iran broke the terms of the nuclear agreement, Washington would act accordingly. The White House said it would review the reported tests and determine an appropriate response if confirmed.
We will continue to redouble our efforts with our allies and partners in the region to try to limit Iran's ability to continue to develop their missile program outside of international conventions. And there is more that we can do to enforce sanctions that are in place. There are also a set of restrictions about what kind of equipment and materials can be shipped to Iran. And there's more that we can do to work with our partners to interdict those kinds of shipments that may include some of those illicit products.
It's Thursday, and joining me now in the studio to shed some light on the top news stories of the week is Amotz Asael, a senior columnist for the Jerusalem Post and the Dow Jones Market Watch. Amotz, good to have you. Well, Amotz, we saw that in the wake of this week's terror attacks, Gideon Sa'ar, the former minister, has lashed out at the government, saying that they failed to provide security to Israeli citizens. What's this about?
Well, this is very unique. He's been relatively quiet since abruptly leaving power at the peak of his career and while being widely touted as Netanyahu's successor roughly 2 years ago. And this pronouncement of his, besides being rare, is also very contentious in terms of its content. It's very unusual in Israel to attack the government from within while it faces harsh security challenges of the sort that this week has offered.
But is there something to his complaint?
I didn't hear anything within what was quoted of him saying that the government has not been considering, regardless of him, especially dealing with illegal Palestinians, in other words, who have arrived here illegally. Mm-hmm. I would say about Sa'ar's move that it probably reflects restlessness on the part of a politician that is seeking a way to return to the fray. The question is, in which framework, whether he wants to do this within Likud and challenge Netanyahu from within. I think if that is his aim, then the timing for him is poor because Netanyahu's grip right now on Likud is solid.
Right.
Conversely, he may be thinking of joining another party, whether Moshe Yaalon's or Yair Lapid's.
Well, staying with politics, in a recent poll that was carried out by Channel 1 showed that the Yesh Atid head, Yair Lapid, has risen in the polls, and if new elections were to take place today, his party would receive 21 mandates, making it the second largest party in the country, and Labour would go down to 16 and Likud to 25. So should Netanyahu be worried about this rising star?
I think that, first of all, we know that polls in this country are questionable at best, and even ones conducted on the day of the elections itself can easily prove unfounded. So that is one thing that we should all bear in mind. Having said this, I think that this poll, if anything, it reflects not what Netanyahu should be fearing, but what Herzog should be fearing. If indeed there is some change here in Lapid's electoral performance or his potential performance, it is at the expense of Labour, not at the expense of Likud predominantly.
But he is the de facto head of the opposition almost.
Yes, I'm saying that if he is indeed developing right now an advantage over Labour, it is because of Labour's internal squabbles. Right now, Herzog is facing a mutiny. There is a whole struggle over there to impose on him a primary election that would, of course, challenge his own leadership. There's nothing equivalent of this sort happening within Yesh Atid, where Lapid's leadership is constitutionally uncontested for many years from here. This gives him an advantage in the narrow scope of such a poll.
Well, let's move on to something else. You know, the U.S. Vice President Biden was in Ramallah yesterday. He took the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to task for not condemning the terrorist attacks. What's behind that?
I think America is deeply frustrated with Abbas's performance, and the more he keeps this up, the more they will seek his departure or eviction, or he's not delivering the goods as far as they're concerned. He's become a problem. Netanyahu, for them, is also a problem. They're not concealing this. But they know that when peace seems imminent here, the Israeli voter responds, and Netanyahu's or any other right-wing candidate's position becomes compromised by a centrist alternative. There is no equivalent of these dynamics in the Palestinian side of the conflict, and this frustrates America, and this is what Joe Biden has expressed.
And yet he went to visit him, so it's protocol.
Well, of course he has, because the American understanding, even the Israeli understanding, is that the Palestinian authorities should be kept alive, and that its structure should not be weakened. So had he avoided going to visit there, he would have weakened them, maybe even dealt them a fatal blow. That he had to avoid. But in terms of their direction, he had to make a statement, which he did.
Amos, we began the show with the French initiative to restart the stalled Israeli-Palestinian peace process. What do you think of that?
I think that there is a historic European frustration with the American domination of the peace process in the Middle East. It harks back to the peace deal with Egypt, where Europe was a complete non-player, and it, of course, goes through Oslo also, which to Europe's great frustration, the way the Europeans understand it. The idea was European, but the implementation was American. What we're seeing now from France is, in my view, part of this historic dynamic.
Amos Yaalon, always a pleasure to have your insight. Thanks for joining IBA
Thank
News.
you, Arya.
IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot today rescinded the nomination of Brigadier General Ofek Buchris to command the Army's Operation Division following an ongoing investigation into rape allegations against the officer. Buchris has been accused of at least 5 counts of rape and sexual assault by 2 former female soldiers. Last Monday, the Brigadier General was suspended from his position, and Eisenkot decided to extend his suspension for an extra month. The IDF spokesperson issued a statement today saying that the decision to cancel Buchris' appointment was taken regardless of the outcome of the legal proceedings against him. The Chief of Staff decided to do so after realizing that the investigation into the case will take months, if not over a year, to come to an end. For his part, Buchris, a decorated former Golani commander, continues to deny any of the allegations against him. Former Chief Rabbi Yona Metzger appeared today before the Jerusalem District Court for the first hearing in the corruption case against him. Metzger is facing charges of fraud, breach of public trust, theft, money laundering, tax violations, conspiracy to commit a felony, and accepting bribes to the tune of 10 million shekels. The court gave the former chief rabbi 4 months to formulate his response, and his official trial is expected to begin 2 months later in September. 3 years ago, Metzger stepped down as chief rabbi after serving 10 years in office. The police fraud unit, Lahav 433, opened its investigation against the rabbi in 2014, and former Attorney General Yehuda Weinstein approved the recommendations made by State Attorney Shai Nitzan and other prosecution officials, paving the way for the trial to begin. This week saw the first international summit for accelerating cannabis innovation in Israel. Investors, scientists, and innovators from around the world were examining how the startup nation could become the spark-up nation and an anchor in the pot-com industry. Israel is considered at the fore of medical cannabis research and innovation because of its flexible and progressive regulations. The Canatech conference brought hundreds of investors and high-tech entrepreneurs to hear about research and try to figure out how to tap into it for the lucrative medical cannabis industry.
You've heard of the dot-com boom back in the 90s. This is the pot-com boom. This industry is growing faster at a rate faster than any other business in the world in our history. And when you consider the fact that the cannabis plant can heal not only a multitude of illnesses, and like Tikkun Olam says, to heal the world, it can also heal a number of economies around the world. Economies and governments who are failing because they don't have the economic revenue to save their families and their governments. So what we have here in Israel as a leading role model in the industry, in the cannabis industry itself, along with the credibility. Israel gives instant credibility. This is ground zero for credibility and integrity in the cannabis industry.
John Kagia, the Director of Industry Analytics for New Frontier, says Israel is one of the most innovative cannabis markets in the world.
Extraordinary thing about what's happening in Israel is that it's deploying the same sort of innovation that it has seen on the technology side to the cannabis industry. And because of that, we're seeing some extraordinarily impressive and exciting new technologies, new science, specifically related to cannabis, coming out of Israel. And that's what we came to learn about.
Clifton Flack, the Chief Marketing Officer of IsraelCannabis.com, says the future will be turning the healing properties of cannabis into pills.
The pharmaceutical cannabis will be molecular, it will be synthetic, it won't be plants. Medical cannabis, as we know it today, will have a significant part of the market, but no doctor will ever prescribe a plant. You don't go to a doctor to ask for extracted jasmine. You go to the doctor for pills. Whether you like that or not, that's what you expect. Israel is a center of research, we're a center of innovation in everything from agriculture, genetics, innovation in medication and medical devices. We are the logical ground zero for everything that cannabis needs.
But there were the purists who believed you shouldn't mess with nature.
I believe that if God make plans and he's smart enough, why the man trying to change what God made?
The Stage, Tel Aviv's premier English-language performing arts organization, will be presenting Steve Martin's hit Picasso at the Lapin Agile. Earlier, I spoke with the play's director, Amber Gitter.
It's about Pablo Picasso meeting Albert Einstein at a bar where they discuss theories. Pablo Picasso talking about his theory, Cubism, and Albert Einstein talking about the special theory of relativity.
Now, Steve Martin, he's a comedian. Is this a comedy?
Yes, it is. It's an absurd, a little bit of farcical, definitely absurd play comedy that Steve Martin wrote. Yes.
Well, I understand you have in your cast Brett Lowenstern, who was an American Idol star. Has he helped, and what did he bring to the show?
He brings a lot to the show, actually. He has a good, incredible voice, and he's an incredible actor, and I'm very honored to be working with him. So yeah, he's definitely brought a lot to the table. The whole cast is fantastic. I have 11 actors and actresses in the cast. It's a large cast. I have an amazing cast. He's not the only one that's talented, but I love him and I love my whole entire cast. They're phenomenal.
It sounds like an eclectic group. What's the state of the English theater in Israel, and is there a thirst for English language theater?
Oh yes, there's a huge thirst for it. Because we have a huge expat population and there is a large English-speaking population in Israel, there's definitely a need for English-speaking theater in Israel. So the Stage, which was formed in 2013, filled a niche market, and the niche market is English-speaking theater, and it's a community theater company that also gives back to the community. We do give quality productions, and at the same time we give back to the community.
An exhibit celebrating Israeli achievements was launched this week at the Ben Gurion International Airport. The year-long exhibition features 60 acclaimed homegrown innovations, such as the popular disc-on-key flash drive. cherry tomatoes, the Mobileye automated collision avoidance system for cars, the PillCam disposable capsule that films the gastrointestinal tract, and the list goes on. The exhibition is displayed along a large wall just beyond the passport control at the airport with the aim of spotlighting Israeli science and leading innovations to the estimated 8 million travelers who pass through the terminal every year. On hand to launch the display were Transportation Minister Yisrael Katz and Science, Technology and Space Minister Ophir Akunis, who said the exhibit is a major public diplomacy asset for Israel. He added that the world is fascinated by Israeli contributions to humanity, therefore it is most fitting that they be featured at the gateway into and out of the country. Stock talk now, and the share prices were up on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange today, and the shekel was also up in trading against major foreign currencies. Let's take a look at the late afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team says it's going to be a pleasant weekend. Temperatures will rise tomorrow, and there will be sea breezes along the coast. It is expected to be even warmer on Saturday. Here are their forecasted highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That brings us to the end of this broadcast, and I'll be back on Sunday for another daily edition of IBA News. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan, wishing you a good evening, a great weekend, and shalom from Jerusalem. And we leave you with this footage from Florida of ponies loose on the highway.